After 2 sessions dealing with fundamental halachic concepts, we're going to speak a bit about Hashkafa. So originally, according to the plan, we were supposed to have 2 sessions, but we tried to combine them. Balancing halacha, balancing betochen and ishtadlis. Defining our roles as community leaders, and the question as American Jewry learned from the 1930s in Europe. 3 different topics. But I will try somewhat to address the 3. Betochen and ishtadlis is a very fundamental question. I dealt with briefly, but not in depth, in Minchas Osher and Amunah V'Betochen. Of the many Svarim I wrote, the Sefer is special to me. And at the beginning of the Sefer, I quoted the Rambam in Peresh HaMishnah, Sof Masechet Brochos. The Rambam writes, Yokor be'einai lelamed, ikar echad mi'ikrei ha'emunah, Yoisar mekol asher alamdehu. Means more to me to teach one principle in Amunah V'Betochen than anything else I could teach. And the Rambam was the ultimate teacher, the greatest codifier of halacha, one of the greatest poskim, the greatest Jewish philosopher, Peresh HaMishnah commentary on Shisha Sidra Mishnah. And the Rambam writes, teaching one principle in Amunah means more to me than anything else I could teach. So of the many Svarim I wrote, Minchas Osher and Amunah B'Tochen is very precious to me. But I did not really delve deeply into the sugya of B'Tochen and Ishtadlis. There are 4 different areas which are so important in our lives. And we daven from the depths of my heart for Siyata D'Shmaya. And in all these areas, Ishtadlis is also required. But what is the proper balance between Betochen and Ishtadlis? And I think it differs from one sugya, from one Inyan to the other. Parnasa, Gesund, health, Torah, and ultimately, war. And in every shiur I give in this period, I cannot ignore the painful period which we are experiencing in Klal Yisrael and in Eretz Yisrael. Regarding Parnasa, there's an amazing Gra Nida Ayin Amud Beis. And it's really amazing. 10 questions were asked by Anshe Alexandria Shal Mitzrayim to Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Some of them wise questions and others silly ones. It's not me to determine, but that's what Chazal say. Divrei Shtus, Divrei Chachma. The smart ones were, Ma yasa odam v'yechkam, Yarba b'yeshiva, v'yamayit b'schoira, and ultimately Yavakesh Mamisha Chachma Shalo. Then they asked, Ma yasa odam v'yashia, how does a person become rich? And he answered, Yarba b'schoira, Yisavi yaten be'amuna, and ultimately Yavakesh Mamisha Oisher Shalo. The combination of tefillah and ishtadlis. The Gaon strikes out 2 words, Yarba b'yeshiva. And the Gaon says, why Yarba b'schoira? Strikes out 2 words, Yarba b'schoira. Ma pitom Yarba b'schoira. You need to do schoira because otherwise, how will you become rich? But there's no need at all laharbois b'schoira. It's interesting to note that in the Meiri, Nidemem Omud Beis, he really has a different gerson. It's amazing. According to the Meiri, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya said, Yisov Yiten be'emuno, v'yavakish mamisha oishu shelo. And the Goen Medata de Nafshei strikes out those two words. So Ishtadlis is required. However, miut Ishtadlis. No need to exaggerate and go out of your way. Is Ishtadlis at all required? The Rambam in the last halacha, Hilchas Shmita v'Yovel, Kol ish v'ish mekol bo yolam, Ashenot v'ruchoi, v'havinu imadoi, Lamod lefnei Hashem, la'avdoi u'le'sharasoi, l'deus Hashem, Hoylech Yosher kefi she'asau Elokim, ופרק מעולב אוי לחשבונס הרבים אשר ביקשו להם בני האדם, הרי זה נזקדש קודש קודשים, ויספיק השם כל צרכיו. Kodesh Baruch Hu will provide for him. The Rambam doesn't write that he needs to do anything. However, the Radbaz, on the spot, the Radbaz says, he needs to do a shtadlis, and a Kodesh Baruch Hu will bless his efforts. But the Rambam doesn't mean you do nothing. L'chayra, that depends. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and Rabbi Shimon and Brochas Lamadei on the base. Ogisa b'yom v'layla. Rabbi Shimon says, Hanig b'hem minig derech Eretz. Harba also ke Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai v'lo yalsa b'yodam. Rabbi Shimon v'yalsa b'yodam. So I don't want to delve into a lengthy Lamdisha discussion. But fundamentally, the Radbaz interpretation, the Radbaz Avon of the Rambam, it's not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him man. He needs to try to have panosa, but his efforts will be blessed. Yalkut Shemoini, Devarim, Tov, Ches. Ki Hashem Elokecho Berechacho, Yochal Afilu Yoshe V'Botel, Talmud Loimer, B'chol Mase Yodecha. So Chazal teach us in Medrash, Ki Yevorechecho Hashem Elokecho. However, B'chol Mase Yodecha. Yochal Afilu Yoshe V'Botel, no. So a person needs to do Hishtadlis. And the Mesilas Yeshorim in Perek Chof Aleph quotes the Medrash. He quotes it in the name of the Safri. And he writes, however, you don't need to do extensive Ishtadlis, like we go. And in my Sefer I wrote, it depends on Midas HaBetochen. Betochen is a positive force. Havateach v'Shem chesed yisoy v'venhu. So in Parnasa, limited Ishtadlis. The Goen strikes out those two words, Yarba v'Schoira. And the Meiri really doesn't have that gerus. So the second area is refuah, caring for your health. Would we say the same? So we daven in every tefillah, Baruch Aleinu Asashonu Azois, which is the bracha for Parnasa. We also daven Refu'einu, which is the bracha for refuah. Would one say regarding refuah, miut ishtadlis, go to the doctor, not more? I don't think so. We've known great people, and when it comes to health, you do whatever you can. So the balance between ishtadlis and betochen is not necessarily the same in different areas. Babakama Pehei, Brochas Daf Samech Omid Aleph, Barapo Yarape Mekan Shenit Nereshus L'Roi Felarapos. Both the Rashba and Shuvas HaRashba, the Ramban and Torah Sa'odam, explain this is not only Reshus, it's not only permission, it's a choiva. You need to take care of your health. And in the Mincha Social on Corona, on the COVID pandemic, there are some very lengthy simonim about preventive medicine, about the chiyuv incumbent on a person to develop a healthy lifestyle and to take care of his body. The Ramban and the Rashba, even though the Lashon of Chazal is nit ne reshus l'roif al harapos, but they both say reshus shehi chayva. And then the Turei Zov asks, Shin Lamed Vav, Steve Kotnala, so why do Chazal say nit ne reshus l'roif al harapos if it's a mitzvah and not only a reshus? So the Taz explains, Me'ikar hadin, if we would be ra'ui, if we would be fitting, we wouldn't need to go to doctors. We would only turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, the Taz writes hundreds of years ago, we're not in that madrega. And therefore, in practicality, it is a chiyuv. And that's what the Ramban writes before the Ramban. The Ramban himself in Pashas B'chukoisai writes, Mala roifa bebeis oivdei Hashem. If you're really a dovek and a Kodesh Baruch Hu, you don't need doctors. So that is a utopian dream. So the Ramban writes 900 years ago, in practicality, yes, we need doctors. And it's not only a reshus, it's a mitzvah. Not only a mitzvah, a chiyuv. And the Taz echoes the same sentiment hundreds of years later. And I think, b'yeridas hadoros, we see less miracles, more hester ponim. We aren't comparable at all to the giants of yore. So yes, we need to do ishtadlus. And when it comes to medicine, nobody would recommend just do a little bit of ishtadlus and daven. So obviously, when it comes to pikuach nefesh, don't be arrogant to think that you could rely on your tefillas and HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to your tefillas. No, you need to do ishtadlus. However, ishtadlus always has its limits, and many times people ask me, we have a bad case, chas v'sholem, cancer, other ailments, and you hear there's a great doctor in America that maybe has somewhat more experience than the doctors, and as a sort of the family has no money. So, al pi halacha, do you need to sell your house and travel to America? I say no. At the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu roi fekol bosa u'mafli la'asos. So even in medicine, there is some limit to ishtadlus. You need to do reasonable ishtadlus. Yes, try to get the best medical care. Try to get the best doctor involved. But you don't need to sell your house because there is a doctor that has a better reputation. At the end of the day, it's all up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And doctors are shlichim. Area number 3, Talmud Torah and Ruchnius. We daven for Ruchnius as well. I think the most passionate bracha we say every day is Berchas Kriyas Shema. Number 2, Ovinu Avu Rachamon Hamarachim Racham Aleinu V'Sem B'Libeinu Bino Lochav V'Nahaskal Shmoya Lilmod Lama Lishma V'Lasas Olakayim as Kol Divrei Salma Torosecho B'Yavo. I can't recall any other bracha in which we invoke Midas HaRachamim so many times. Ovinu Avu Rachamon Hamarachim Racham Aleinu. It is as if a person is pleading for his life. So we daven for Ruchnius, we daven for Atzloch and Talmud Torah, and a Berchas HaChodesh once a month. We daven, HaKadosh Baruch should give us Chaim, sheyesh b'm Yiras Shamayim v'Yiras Chet, Ahavas Torah v'Yiras Shamayim. We daven. So maybe we would say, Miut Ishtadlus, learn a little. You daven. If we compare Talmud Torah to Parnasa, so it is quite obvious. No. We daven for all our needs. and all are bekoshes, in Ruchnius and in Gashmius. But the level of Ishtadlis is not the same. So in Parnasa, according to the Gon, Mesilas Yeshorim, Miut Ishtadlis, do some Ishtadlis. Don't go overboard, don't exaggerate, put your trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to medicine, far more Ishtadlis. But even in medicine, with the Gevur, has a limit. Try to get the best medical care, best doctor. But there might always be someone that might be even better. Comes to Talmud Torah, look for the best Rosh Yeshiva, not only a good one. And learn Yoimam V'Laylo, even though in Ruchnius as well, we daven. But Chazal say, Yugato Metzos Adam, and without Yegiya, you're not going to get anywhere. When it comes to war, we daven. And this is a central theme in everything that I have said in the past 2.5 months since Simchas Torah. The army needs our tefillas. They need our Torah. And we firmly believe, as I said many times, Jews don't win wars by sheer might. Because Jews don't do anything b'derech hateva. We are the people of miracles. Yes, we need the best army. We need the most advanced weaponry. We need the greatest motivation. And I believe we have all that. But all that is not enough. Hashem ish melchama, and we believe in Divrei Chazal, oim lo yishayu ragleinu b'melchama b'schus shari Yerushalayim shoyske b'toiro. And we daven, and we learn, and we give tzedakah, and we try to bring people together because achdus is so important and so essential in times of war. But would we say, miut ishtadlis, half a day, have your soldiers fight a half a day? No. Utmost ishtadlis, everything, as much as you can. So it is quite obvious that in all human endeavors and in everything we wish to achieve and we want to achieve, and we believe that whatever we need depends on siyata d'shmaya. We never say, Koichi v'oitzim yodi osu li esachai elazeh v'yodato v'nivobecho ki Hashem elokecho hu anois l'chol koyach la'asas chayel. In all human endeavors, whether it's panos or gesund or ruchnius or war, we always need siyata d'shmaya. However, the level of ishtadlus differs from one area to the other. So how to balance out betochen and ishtadlus? Everyone understands it's impossible to give clear guidelines. What we learn from Chazal is fundamental ideas. But we can't go into details. But in Siman Gimel, or Mamar Gimel, in Minchas Osho, Betochen ve'Ishtadlus, I brought the two different opinions regarding Midas HaBetochen. The Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, that say in so many sources, when a person has true betochen in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he is safe. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu has true betochen in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no one could harm him. And on the other hand, the Chazon Ish that says, betochen shel shoitim, why do you think you deserve salvation? Yesh din v'yesh dayin. And the Chazon Ish's definition of betochen is, everything is beyond Hashem. You're never lost. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could always help. But you need to merit His rachamim. And I wrote a very lengthy essay, Mama, and I argue there is no fundamental machloekes between the Chazon Ish and the Baal Shem Tov. The Chazon Ish towards the end of his Mama writes that there is sometimes a fundamental feeling, belev yirei Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come to their help So my conclusion was, based on many sources, Divrei Chazal v'Harishayim, yes, the Tuchen is a positive force, but it is never a guarantee. Like so many other zgulas in Chazal, Haboteach b'Shem Chesed Yesod V'Venu. That is a pasuk. When a person has betochen, betochen brings chesed, midas a chesed upon a person. But it is never a guarantee. Yesh din v'yesh dai. So Hasidim tell a story of the Rebbe Reb Zusha. So Reb Zusha Mahanapali, the older brother of Rebbe Melech Melezhensk, was once sitting in Besmedish with his Chavraya Kadisha, and for days they had nothing to eat. And there was a very well-known woman whose name was Tamaro, and she supported the Hasidim in town. She was wealthy, and she had a strong feeling for the Hasidim. From time to time, she gave them money, she gave them food. And the Talmidim, the Hasidim, plead with Reb Zusha, please, we're starving from hunger, we can't go on. We don't have any koyach to learn. Would you please go and ask this lady to give us some money? And Reb Zusha was reluctant, but he couldn't say no. So he left the shtibel, walked over to her house, touched the doorknob, turned around, and back to the shtibel. And as Hasidim asked him, you did nothing, you didn't even knock on the door. How do you expect her to know from the other side of the door that somebody touched her doorknob? And he said, I'm not willing to do more shtadlis than that. A few minutes later, she comes to the shtibel, she sees the Hasidim, she sees there's nothing to eat, and she bought a truckload of supplies. So Rabbi Zusha said, that is the midas hashtadlis that I was willing to do. So kegoidel habetochen miuta ishtadlis. But once again, that is when we're dealing with parnasa. In Torah, maximum ishtadlis. In war, maximum ishtadlis and maximum tefillah. With a total belief that everything is biyad Hashem. But when we're dealing with a dvar mitzvah, we can't say miut ishtadlis. Saving lives is a mitzvah. When it comes to a mitzvah, it requires maximum ishtadlis. Learning Torah is a mitzvah. So when it comes to a mitzvah, it requires maximum ishtadlis. Making money is not the nature of a mitzvah. It is a necessity. And therefore, ishtadlis to a limit. And this is a fundamental analysis, even somewhat lumdish one, regarding how do we balance out betochen and ishtadlis. And when we talk about ishtadlis in a difficult period like ours, people ask me conflicting questions. So many people ask me, is this the time to make aliyah, to come to Eretz Yisrael? Because it has become somewhat scary in America. In campuses, dramatic rise of anti-Semitism. And many people ask, is it the time to sell your house in America to come to Eretz Yisrael? You might be surprised, but some people in Israel ask me, should we leave? It has become very scary. Should we move to America? And I say those American wonderful balabatim that feel insecure in America, and that is why they want to come to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is the most dangerous place in the world for a Jew to live. Let's face it. It's uncomfortable in America. But in Eretz Yisrael, we have terror. And more people are killed in Israel by terror in 3 months than the entire Jewish world in 30 years. In the past 6 months, 65 people were murdered in Israel by terror attacks. And I'm not talking about the war. about terror. The entire Jewish world didn't lose 65 people in the past 30 years to terror. So Israel is the most dangerous place in the world for a Jew to live. And when you analyze our situation in Israel, it's scary. Especially after Simchas Torah, after October the 7th. Millions of Arabs in Judea and Samaria and even in Israel, they are our enemies. We are surrounded with 100 million Arabs and they all hate us. It is a miracle. I think people should come to Eretz because that's home. And that's Eretz HaKodesh. And that is the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised to Avraham. And once again to Yitzchak. And once again to Yaakov. It is where we should be. And it's an inspiration. Thousands of people visiting Eretz Yisrael. And I said many times since I came to America, it's miraculous. And when I meet American Balabatim visiting Eretz Yisrael, I tell them, are you aware that you're insane? And they ask me, why would the Rav say such a thing? Why are we insane? Because sane people don't visit the war zone. I'm not aware that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have been flocking to the Ukraine in the last year and a half to be in Lviv and in Kiev and in Mariupol and in Odessa. They're all running away. Ukrainians are trying to flee the country. But we are family. And Klal Yisrael is family. And when your brother is crying, you want to be with him. So thousands of people are visiting Eretz Yisrael just to be there, just to feel, just to see, just to be together, just to try to be helpful. So if you're coming to Israel because you're afraid to be in America, that doesn't make sense. If you're coming to Israel because you love the land, and that is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be, yes, you should. You should. On the other hand, I think it would be such a mistake to leave Eretz Yisrael. But this is not a question which could be easily addressed. So when the war broke out, and thousands of American bochum and seminary girls were in America, and they asked me, should we come back? I said, I don't know. I don't know. It depends on your feeling and follow your heart. I think you may come back, but I don't want to take on my responsibility because no one knew where this is going. So, Melchemes Yom HaKippurim, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said a shmuz, and he said, Bochum should not leave Eretz Yisrael. Don't go back to America, because you daven better when you're here. You daven better when you feel it. Reb Chaim had greater places. He took upon himself to say, don't go back. But after 2 or 3 days in Melchemes Yom HaKippurim, the matzav stabilized. I think now the danger is greater than it was then. But Baruch Hashem, all the Bochurim are back, and all the girls are back, and almost everyone that left for Yom Tov is back. And Baruch Hashem, that is where we should be. The comparison of what's happening in America to Germany or Eastern Europe in the 1930s, I do not think that is a valid comparison. I don't think it's the same. Anti-Semitism in Europe was so deeply entrenched, and it was encouraged by all the governments of Eastern Europe. It's different today in America. It's scary enough, it's bad enough, but it's not the same. So I'm not a prophet. I'm not a Navi. But I think people in America, Eden in America, have betochen and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Things will get better. If you want to come to Eretz Yisrael, please come. This is our land. This is Eretz HaKodesh. We have a mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. We need you in Eretz Yisrael, and we believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't bring us to Eretz Yisrael, chas v'sholom, to have us leave again. But these questions are not simple questions. So that is regarding the massive of security in America, in Europe, and in Eretz Yisrael. I've been asked by various different communities, primarily France. People are afraid and they want to take the mezuzahs off their doors. And it's such a painful question. If you are afraid, maybe add on an additional mezuzah. But that might be Bal Tosef. But when people are afraid, they need their mezuzahs. It would be tragic if people will be taking off their mezuzahs because they're afraid. We learn from the Ramon Hilchos Mezuzah, mezuzah is a shmira not only when you dwell in the house, even when you leave the house, the mezuzah is still a shmira. And the mezuzah is a shmira for everyone that lives in the house, whether he is inside or outside. So in troublesome times, you need your mezuzah. If it would be a pikuach nefesh situation, I would say differently. But it definitely is not a pikuach nefesh situation. People aren't getting killed in these countries. So, if you're afraid, check your mezuzahs and make sure that they're kosher mezuzahs. Community leaders in a painful time like this, what is our role? Our role is to lead with compassion, to listen and feel the pain, especially when you are in Eretz Yisrael. And I spoke about this at length Shabbos. I don't want to go over it again because our time is limited. Spoke about the parsha where the brothers of Yosef make a cheshbon nefesh. Hashem amenachnu ki rainu b'tzolos nafsho b'schananei oleinu v'lo shamanu. But you weren't passive bystanders. You did it. You threw them into the pit. You sold them. Yes. Eim kol chatas, the origin of these tragic events was lack of compassion and brotherhood. He's our brother. He cried, and we didn't hear, and we didn't listen. So you need to listen and you need to feel the pain. And if you feel the pain, you try to be helpful. And you could be helpful in many ways, directly and indirectly. So sitting here in Woodmere, 6,000 miles away from Gaza, you could be helpful. We need your Torah, we need your tefillah, we need your achdus, we need your tzedakah. And that is real, and that is substantial. And I tell people, if you believe in Divrei Chazal, the Torah helps, and tefillah helps, and tzedakah helps. And if you care about your brothers and sisters, how come you're not making any effort? If you're not making any effort, it is either you don't believe or you don't care. Because if you do care and you do believe, it's just inconceivable that you're doing nothing. You see your brother is drowning, and you have the means to help him. You have the means to save him, and you won't do so. It is either you don't care or you don't believe you could be helpful. But if you know you could be helpful and you care about him and he's drowning, how come you're doing nothing? So every Jew, if you do nothing, then you need a very profound cheshbon nefesh. It is either you don't believe or you don't care. Because if you do believe and you do care, how come you're doing nothing? So we all need to do something. There are many ways to be helpful. But while you're sitting here, or any place else in the world, it is your tefillah, your tehillim, your Torah, your tzedakah, and we firmly believe that that makes a difference. We need to lead our communities, encourage them to be better. The Rambam teaches us in Hilchos Taniyos, when tragedy strikes, it is always a Kodesh Baruch Hu talking to us and expecting us to be better. So I think we're running a bit late, and these are just some thoughts and feelings I wish to share with you about leadership in troublesome times. So I've been to a lot of big cholems, a lot of nichum aveims, and just giving chizik to families and to individuals, and sometimes it's just listening and crying with people that gives them the greatest visit. Sometimes there's not much to say, but whenever we try to console people on loss, is the fundamental feeling. And that's the way you live your life and understand that this world is a phase. The neshama is forever. The body is temporary. And those young soldiers that gave their lives, and they are up there with a Kodesh Baruch Hu in Gan Eden. The loss is terrible, but that is an achoma portal. We should always share b'seres toivos, and a Kodesh Baruch Hu give us the koyach and the wisdom to lead with wisdom and with compassion. And we all hope that this war will be over b'korev. Tishkei to Eretz Arboam Shana, Tishkei to Eretz Ad, Bias Moshiach Tzidkenu, Heru v'yameinu amen.